Hello fellow duelists, this is Shadow of the Moon and welcome to an updated deck profile of my Simorgh deck for June of 2024. Most people don't play Simorgh anymore, I'm going to be honest, if anybody even does. By this time most people have kind of moved on to like Flunderies and everything because it's a Winged Beast deck, it's a wind deck, and essentially you're summoning big boss monsters. But I'm an old head when it comes to, decks. I love my Simorgh deck because it's just a lot of fun to be able to bring out the big Simorgh boss monsters, and this deck goes all the way back to 2006 when they first had the first Simorgh bird of, I think it was like bird of not perfection, it was like bird of ancestry or something. So I mean, it was a lot of fun to actually see that. And then years later they finally updated the deck and actually gave it a full-on support with all the monsters that you would need for it. So this deck is a lot of fun because it focuses on lockdown. And if you enjoy kind of like slower paced decks or decks that are semi-fast but they're more for like just like stun and everything, this is definitely a good deck for you to actually try out. They did ban Link Karibo, and this deck also did limit anti-spell fragrance, so the card is no longer in the deck, but I actually do have a good substitute. So without any further ado, without me rambling, let's go ahead and get straight on into it. And we are on the road to 500 subs, so I'm hoping to have 500 subs or at least close to it by my birthday, because I am going to be opening up a Legacy booster box. That was one, so it looks like Metal Raiders was the one that won. So I just want to say thank you to everybody that has stuck with me and supported my channel. You guys rock so much. I really appreciate it. And let's, push it. Let's get to 500. Let's see what we can do. So without any further ado, let's go and straight in the deck profile. So first off, the big boss monsters, you're going to have Simorgh of Darkness. This also counts as a wind monster, and essentially this can be special summoned from the graveyard by tributing a Simorgh monster, and has also negate. So this is probably one of the best cards that you would want to be able to play in this deck for that reason. It is an amazing card. And then next, we've got 2 copies of Simorgh Lord of the Storm, which is essentially the same thing. It's just another big boss monster. It does have a negate, and when you activate a spell trap or effect negate, or spell trap or effect, or when your opponent does, you can tribute a Winged Beast monster to be able to destroy it, to negate and destroy it. So it's another good card to have in the deck. And then we've got 1 copy of your Dark Simorgh. This is a classic, so this prevents your opponent and from setting any cards, so they cannot set their back row. So if you're playing against like a Labyrinth player or a Trap Tricks player, they would not be able to set cards. So this is a great tech card, and you can actually bring this out by just banishing banishing a wind and a dark monster from your graveyard. Or if this is in your graveyard, you can actually discard a wind or dark monster from your hand to special summon this from the graveyard. Alright, then we've got triple copies of Simorgh Bird of Perfection. So if you normal special summon a monster, you can reveal this card, special summon it, and if you do, you can send a Simorgh monster from your deck to the graveyard, which works really well with this deck. When you're playing with the Harpy variant, you're mainly just sending another copy of this to the graveyard, but because this is a Simorgh deck, you're going to be sending any Simorgh card from your deck to the graveyard. And what makes Simorghs amazing is that when they're in the grave, and if you and your opponent control no spell or trap cards, you can actually special summon them back from the graveyard and just banish them when they leave the field, but it becomes more bodies on the board to be able to go into your higher plays, like your link plays and everything, because this deck pretty much is a link deck -1 card, which is a tech card. And then this also adds a Simorgh card from your deck to your hand, so you can add a field spell, which will be Elbraz. And then you've got 1 copy of your Simorgh Bird of Protection. So this card is mainly in here because it kind of just like gets rid of your opponent's spell and trap cards when you activate its effect, but it's another Simorgh body, but it's probably the weakest one of the bunch, but I do keep it in here at least 1 because it is a Simorgh card and it works with the deck. And then you've got 3 copies of Simorgh Bird of Calamity. So Bird of Calamity, when this card is normal summoned, you can actually send a Simorgh card from your deck to the graveyard, or Simorgh monster, so that works really well with this deck to be able to put those bodies in the graveyard to be able to special summon them later on. And then 3 copies of Simorgh Bird of Beginning. This card is really good. Simorgh Bird of Beginning allows you to discard a Simorgh card to be able to add a Simorgh card from your deck to your hand. So it lets you add any Simorgh card from your deck to your hand, which makes it very valuable. I love this guy. It's a really good card. It's not as good as the next card, I feel like, that I'm going to be showing it, but it's just as good in my opinion. So it's just, I love all these cards because they allow you to special summon directly from the graveyard, so it allows you to have more monsters on the field. So you can add a Simorgh card from your deck to your hand just by having them. And then quite possibly one of the cutest and easily one of the best cards in this deck, Simorgh Bird of Beginning. So Simorgh Bird of Beginning if it's normal summoned, you can actually have an additional normal summon that same turn. So obviously you would special summon this, or normal summon this, and then normal summon this again, activate its effect, add a Simorgh card from your deck to your hand, and just keep the combos going. This is also a level 1, which works with another card that I have in this deck. This is probably quite possibly one of the most important cards in the deck. Alright, so that's going to be it for the monsters. Let's move on to the spells and traps. So obviously, triple field spell, Elbraz, Sacred Land of the Simorgh. This allows you to reveal a level 5 or higher monster, and you can actually normal summon it with 1 less tribute, and also let you special summon a level 4 lower Simorgh monster from your hand, so you get to activate one of those effects. And then triple copies of Simorgh Onslaught. So this lets you add, by discarding a card, lets you add 2 Simorgh cards with different attributes from your deck to your hand. So a wind monster, and you can add a dark Simorgh, you can add a Simorgh of Darkness, you can add a Simorgh Burg of Perfection. So it works really well with the deck. And then you have Purist Map. So it is a little bit of a controversial card in my opinion, because it does make you pay half your life to add a level 1 monster from your deck to your hand. But if you're playing against like cards like Tempai, it doesn't really matter. And besides, you need to be able to add this card from your deck to your hand to make the deck actually work a little bit better. So this card in my opinion is still worth it. If you don't feel comfortable and you wanted to play like Small World or something, you could. That would be an option. But I actually don't mind playing the map, because it actually is very useful. And then since you are playing Back Row Destruction, you're going to play 1 Harpy's Feather Duster. You can replace this with whatever you want, but like a Call by the Grave, but I wanted to keep in here just for like the, you know, flavor reasons and everything. So that's going to be it for the spells, and that's going to be it for the spells. Let's move on to the traps. So triple trap trick. So since we do not have anti-spell fragrance, this card actually really is going to help us, because during your opponent's turn you can activate it, and you can banish 1 card and then set 1 trap card that has the same name as the one banished. So ergo, you're going to be banishing your Harpy's Featherstorm, which will allow you to negate your opponent's monster's effects. So since you have triple of these and 2 of these, essentially you have 5 Harpy Featherstorms to be able to play it, which is very useful in this deck. And then for the hand traps, I did include 1. So this can be an Ash if you want. I'm just having Ghost Ogre because it's a hand trap, it's a replace of it. But if you want Ash or Effect Failure, that could definitely be an option. And then lastly, one of my tech cards in here. Since you are playing a control base deck, this is a really good card to have, Super Poly. So Super Poly makes it to where I have 1 fusion card in this deck that I'm going to be special summoning that really works well with the deck, and this kind of stuns your opponent, because this takes their monster and takes one of your monsters and allows you to you know, fusion summon. So I consider this a hand trap, because you know, you can play this, you know, immediately from the hand. It's a quick play, so, and it works really well with the deck. So alright, that's going to be it for the main deck. Let's move on to the extra deck. So a lot of goodies in this extra deck. So you've got 1 Appaloosa, 1 Borosaur Dragon, 1 Tri-Brigade, and 1 Mech Knight. So these are going to be your big monsters that you're going to be special summoning, essentially, by having the rank 4s. This deck, you kind of have to be very, conservative on your plays and know what you're wanting to go into, because you can go into these, but it's not going to be like, your field's not going to be super big. Like, you're not going to have multiple negates, you're just going to have multiple interruptions, and this is the best way to do it with Mech Knight, this, and this. And then what is great about this is you've got all 3 of these, or all 4 of these, and you're going to be using IP Masquerena. IP Masquerena can access all of these cards that I just showed you by sending this to the graveyard along with other materials. So you're going to have Unicorn, you're going to have Phoenix, and you're going to have Cerberus. So I just included all the Nightmare cards that you have that's possible, that's viable and available to you. And then you're going to have your Desperate Doom Eagle. Desperate Doom Eagle is a great tech card in here, because if your opponent controls no monsters in their graveyard, this becomes 4,800 and also acts as kind of like a Call by the Grave. And then you have, or a DD Crow, and then you have your Tri-Brigade Ferret, the Baron Blossom, and then you have your Harpy Conductor. Harpy Conductor is probably one of the best cards in this deck, because it is a winged beast, and it can help you play your Harpy's Featherstorm. Also, since it is a winged beast, it allows you to access a lot of cards that you wouldn't be able to if you're special summoning the monsters back from the graveyard, all your Simorgh cards. And then you've got 1 Verdant Charmer. This is an option. and so is Great Fly. This is also an option too. And Almirage, which takes the place of Link Kuriboh because it is a rank 1. So you've got all 3 of these in here. If you wanted to replace these, that's completely up to you, but I actually like using them in the deck because they do work. And then lastly, the tech card that I added, since I am using Super Poly, you're playing Garura, Wings of Resonant Life. So this allows you to draw a card when this leaves the field. It is a winged beast, and essentially when you're using Super Poly, you're going to be having 2 monsters with the same type and attribute but different names. So you're going to be using either your monsters, or you're going to be using you or your opponents if your opponent ends up having like a wind monster or something, or dark monster or whatever, if you have Simorgh of Perfection or Simorgh of Darkness or whatever. So this is a really good tech card to have in this deck. I love being able to surprise this on somebody because they don't expect it. You play Super Poly, and then you take their monster, you special summon this, and then when this card leaves the field, you get to draw a card, so it is a free draw. So, alright, so that's going to be it for this deck profile. I hope you enjoy it. This deck is just a lot of fun to play with. Yes, I do know that in terms of being competitive, this deck is not really competitive. If you want something that is more something you can take to your locals or take to a different tournament, I would probably recommend Flu. But, you know, I'm a big fan of Simorgh. I always have been, and it was just great, and it was just awesome to actually see them finally come out with more support. So it's cool to actually see Simorgh actually have monsters and actually have kind of a strategy, a fundamental one. If you wanted to replace cards, you could also use Storm of the Monarchs, you could use Solix, or you could use Enemy Controller, you could use all those, but I just didn't have room for in the deck for those because, you know, this deck is already really airtight in terms of the monster count and the spell and trap count and what you're using. But if you wanted to and add stuff, that is definitely an option that you can definitely go around. So, alright, thank you for this watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and with that, I'll see you guys next time. Later.